radius fractures I'm going to talk on. The most common fracture which is seen in our practice. There are freshers as well as seniors over here, so I'll just recapitulate the basics of radius. First, basically there are three parts to scaphoid fossa, lunate fossa and the sigmoid notch. Okay, then the volar palmar tilt, then the angles, basically the distance between the proximal and distal part of the radius about 11 to 12 millimeters. Angulation is about 23 degrees and there is radial ulnar variance is 0. There is 3-column concept which states that there are 3 columns which have to be maintained while doing the reduction or the fixation. These corner concepts also are important. Basically there is central reference point and there is dorsal ulnar corner and volar ulnar corner. The importance of this is basically the volar ulnar corner of the distal radius is the critical corner, and that has to be maintained while doing the reduction, which gives the stability to the carpus as well as the distal radius. The forces are traversing through the lunate to the proximal radius through that corner, so that corner is quite important. Now this new concept has come recently in the recent papers, which is 4-corner concept of the distal radius fractures, which is similar to this is a new classification concept basically, which is applicable in the proximal humerus also. So which is similar concept is coming up in distal radius, and I think the similar concepts will come in more of intra-articular fractures as well. So there are these 4 corners: radial corner, dorsal corner, volar corner and ulnar corner, and you have to see the gaps between these corners, and then that's how it is classified. So the most A is basically the extra-articular fracture where these 3 corners are together, and the C is the most comminuted intra-articular fracture. Another important concept is basically you have to see the position of the lunate with respect to these corners, and that is what determines the outcome. What is most important is the lunate has to be central in alignment with the radius, and if that is not there, it in the long run it gives bad results. So as you can see, the lunate, whichever fragment the lunate traverses with, that is what you have to address properly. This is Fernandez classification, which is in different grades, basically bending fractures, shear fractures, compression, avulsion fracture and combined fractures. The Soong classification is basically based on the post-operative, it's a post-operative classification. So you have to see the position of the plate, the volar plate, in relation to the volar rim of the radius. You have the pointer? This is the volar rim. Basically, if you see the picture at on the left side, that's the volar rim, and you have to see the relationship of the radial plate in relation to that volar rim. And if it is basically it's more proud, then the chances of the flexor tendon injury are higher or irritation are higher. And if it is less than that, that's grade 0, you can see the volar rim is more proud as compared to the plate, and grade 2 you can see basically the plate is more proud, so the chances of tendon irritation is much higher. So the treatment options basically vary widely. Close reduction, application of cast, close reduction, percutaneous pinning, Kappanji pinning, close reduction with application of external fixator, open reduction with plate, dorsal plates, volar plates, styloid plates, these combination are available. So close reduction and cast, most important is the reduction has to be proper. So the 6 basically, 6 deformities have to be addressed while doing the reduction.
You can give him the pointer from there, no?
Yeah.
You can put your finger, a pointer will move automatically on the slide.
That's fine. Okay. So again, while doing the K-wiring, you have to see to it that the articular alignment is maintained, radial variance is maintained, and the radial tilt is maintained. External fixator, basically minimally invasive. Reduction is achieved by distraction, sometimes by ligamentotaxis, sometimes actually you can put the wires in the distal fragment and then put the external fixator. Most of the times die punch fragment cannot be addressed with this particular method, so you need some different methods for that. Most common complication with external fixator is CRPS, chronic regional pain syndrome, which is quite common complication after this external fixator. So nerve injury, pin breakage, infection, over distraction, stiffness, these are the possible complications with external fixator. This is what is most acceptable, adequate reduction. These are the pointers for adequate reduction. Intra-articular step of 2 mm, less than 2 mm, radial shortening less than 3 mm, dorsal tilt less than 10 degrees, radial inclination 15 degrees less, I would say, and DRUJ incongruity less than 1 to 2 millimeters. While doing the close methods or plaster methods, what is most important is you have to see the X-ray at 1 week and 2 weeks follow-ups, because if the reduction is lost because of dorsal comminution, then obviously you have to resort to the open methods. So what I would do is analyze the situation, whether it is intra-articular fracture or extra-articular, whether it is open or closed fracture, displaced or undisplaced, stable after reduction, that is very important, whether the fracture is stable after reduction or unstable, whether the proximal extension is there, you have to get the proximal x-rays to see that, whether there are any other associated injuries, for example scaphoid fracture, very rare but it's possible, whether there is any scaphoid fracture along with the distal radius fracture, whether it is dominant hand or non-dominant hand, whether it is unilateral or bilateral, and the bone quality, of course. So operative treatment of distal radius fracture, decision making is basically evaluate patient's functional demands. I don't think there is anybody anywhere who doesn't want to use both their hands every day. Okay, so I would fix all the fractures in my case, my institution, except if it is undisplaced or minimally displaced. Due neurological examination, median nerve injuries, uncommon in straightforward fractures, but it's quite common in displaced unstable fractures. So you have to look for that. Also look for the tendon injuries, extensor pollicis longus injury, that is also not to be missed. So traction films again you have to take. Decision making, understand the fractures. If it is intra-articular, if you are in doubt, get the CT scan to get the clear picture of how the fracture is, and then only go on to either whichever method you want to resort to. Open reduction and plating. My most common approach is volar approach, flexor carpi radialis approach, and fix with the volar plate. Achieve anatomical reduction as far as possible or the acceptable reduction and fix the plate. So this is the volar approach. Basically you have to go through the flexor carpi radialis, and that's the pronator quadratus. You have to reflect the muscle and then you can reach the volar surface of the distal radius. Now this is one of the, there are different methods for reduction of the distal radius fractures. This is one of the methods. If the fracture is displaced dorsally, then what you have to do is you have to put the K wires parallel to the joint surface. This K wire is parallel to the joint surface, and then basically you apply the plate over that particular K wire, and once you are happy with the position of the plate and the K wires, basically you can do the fixation of the distal fragment with 1 or 2 screws and then jack it up and get the volar tilt and then achieve the reduction with the help of a plate. So that is one of the common methods which is used for displaced distal radius fractures. So that's how you achieve the reduction. You have to, the plate has to be off the bone, and then basically you jack it up and then fix it with the screw. This screw most of the times is longer screw, because with the same length screw you won't be able to get the plate over to the bone. So then you can replace this screw later on. So again, important point is a watershed line which you shouldn't be crossing. If you cross the line, then basically the tendon irritation or tendon injury is common. So these are a few of the examples So again, for the X-rays, so far as the X-rays are concerned, very important thing to notice so far as the X-rays are concerned is, if you are taking the AP view, then you have to keep the hand like that at about a few degrees of of few degree lower than the elbow. And if you are taking the lateral view, you have to keep the arm slightly above. That is so as to see the end-on surface of the distal radius. So that is quite important. So if you are doing it in operating room, these are the X-rays which are important, and that's the angulation which you have to take to see if the screws are intra-articular or extra-articular. Okay, so to check whether the position of the screws, that these two views are important. So again, complications we have already talked about. Few of the examples, basically dorsal plating is very rarely required. Dorsal plating has its own complications. It comes in the way of the tendons. Very rarely, if you are not able to achieve the reduction with any other means, then only dorsal plating is required. There are certain methods for this also. There are certain screws which are available, which you can put through the volar plate, and the one screw goes from the dorsal side to achieve the reduction. So this is dorsal plating is usually, most of the times, 99% of the times, this is not required. So this is the frag lock screw which I was talking about. So this particular part of the screw goes from the dorsal side, and this is a volar plate, and this part goes through the plate, and this part basically compresses from the dorsal side. So this is a frag lock screw, so which can be used for achieving the reduction. Functional outcomes, orifices, basically all methods, if you see the evidence, all methods give good results. There is no one method which good results evidence wise. Okay, but my preferred method is basically the volar plating. So that's basically the few of the examples. Intra-articular fractures fixed with a volar plate. Second case, again it is volar Barton, volar angulation fracture fixed with volar plates. Third case, again volar Barton fracture. Buttress plating, this is as opposed to the previous method. Basically, obviously it is a buttress plate, so you have to fix the proximal part first, and then that buttresses the distal fragment into position, and that's how the reduction is achieved. So fourth case, again basically very distal fracture, and as you can see, I have crossed the watershed line, so it's very likely that Sung mostly 2, and it's likely that the irritation will occur, and basically I'll have to remove the plate later on. Okay, fifth case, again volar angulation, volar plating. Again, next case, unstable fracture treated with volar plating. And again, the next case. Volar plating is the treatment of choice for most of the cases for me. So comminuted distal radius fracture fixed with a plating. Okay. Styloid fragment, if it is displaced, you can use additional styloid buttress plate on the lateral side. That is one of the options. But in most of the cases, I never needed to use these cases. I could get the purchase through the volar plate only. Okay. In the late cases, if you are not able to reduce the styloid fragment, you may have to do the tenotomy and then achieve the reduction. Okay, so summarizing this, basically this is AO classification. If you want to go for A1, 2, 3, then conservative to operative treatment, whichever you want to choose. If it is grade type B fracture, then you have to do the buttress plating, either dorsal buttress plating or volar buttress plating, depending on the fracture types. And if it is intra-articular combination, metaphyseal combination, basically you have to use the combination, fragment specific fixation or the combination of all these methods, whichever is suitable. So bottom line is basically there is no agreement on the distal radius fractures. So whichever treatment you choose, you have to get good at it and achieve good reduction and function. Thank you.